Okay, guys, thank you so much for subscribing and for watching my YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, you're still watching. I hope you'll hit that subscribe button, and I hope that you'll refer your friends to me as well and ask them to just stop by so we can keep doing this. It's always appreciated. And since we do not have those daily Democratic press briefings that I've been pushing for, preferably led by Pete Buttigieg, um, we have to have other sources to sort of get the word out. So if there was a briefing today, and let's just say I was, for some reason, Mayor Pete's deputy or advising them in any way, shape, or form, here are just some of the things that I would cover so that everybody knows. Aside from that ridiculous and terrifying video that Trump put on Truth Social yesterday showing gold statues of Trump and turning Gaza into a Trump resort, Trump Riviera, with gold statues of himself and money raining down from the skies, after the ethnic cleansing. That is something that should be talked about because a lot of people don't know, and they should. If you notice, if you go like to Facebook, you try to tell a MAGA person about it, they don't believe you. And then by the time you show it to them, they've kind of disappeared and don't want to hear it. The other thing is um, Senator Tammy Duckworth. She is a wounded veteran. She lost two legs fighting in a war. And she was questioning Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. I can't even believe I almost choke when I say that. Secretary of Defense, Fox News airhead drunk guy who doesn't wash his hands. He's disgusting. He's unqualified. He's a pig. He's probably somebody who should be behind bars now that we know more about him, but Trump loves those guys. Anyway, he in his hearing, he said that when he was asked directly, directly by somebody if he if he says he doesn't know if Russia invaded Ukraine. That's the new line by him and some of the deputies. They don't know. They just don't know. It's like, really? We all knew 3 years ago. So Tammy Duckworth goes on, I guess it was Twitter, and she says, Secretary of Defense Hegseth says he doesn't know if Russia invaded Ukraine. And then she says, "This you," meaning him, she tagged him. And here he is on Fox News tracking Russia's invasion of Ukraine with him, with the map, showing everybody, when this happened, when Putin attacked Ukraine. But he forgets all that. So I'm guessing, I don't know, probably, was he drunk? Does he forget because he was drunk? Because we do know he's got a serious drinking problem, with many former coworkers saying he shows up on the job drunk often, real benders. So, maybe he was drunk when he did that segment on Fox News 3 years ago. And I don't know, about a million segments since then. So I'd be talking about that. I would also, and I think this is something that really shows the need for the daily briefings to fact check the White House briefings and everything else. And then eventually have, this shadow cabinet so that each person with an area of expertise can really drill down. But they have the whole thing led by Mayor Pete, as I said. So DOGE was forced to remove most of their accomplishments, air quotes, accomplishments, from their website after they were fact checked. But there's no coordinated way to fact check this. Even whoever did the fact checking, they could pick up the phone or email, this White House or this Congressional Democratic press briefing team that I'm talking about. A lot of people would be sending stuff in as long as the source, it can make the cut when they do the briefing. So thank goodness that this happened with DOGE, but we need to be doing this on a daily basis with all of them. So again, DOGE, they were fact checked and they were forced to remove most of their so-called accomplishments after they were fact checked. See, folks, fact checking works. Why are we not doing it with the daily press briefings? I just had my podcast I put on Patreon. I had Joe Walsh on there and just put a clip up that I put on social media where he says he thinks it's because leadership, Democratic leadership, just by nature, they're competitive and they're territorial. And I've been saying that for a while, as have others. And I think that having a Pete Buttigieg up there as this person the face of these briefings, who's so good at this, who would get so much press attention and really turn things around, could be our Zelensky. That person, they're saying, I think a lot of the 2028 hopefuls that want to run for president would also be threatened by him. And that's why we don't have it. It really is that simple. It really is that simple. And he can't say anything. I mean, I know he's probably heard about it by now. We have Mark Cuban that's come out and said, Pete, do this, you know. But until he actually gets a call from Democratic leadership, he can't really comment on this, even if he would pack his bags tonight and be here tomorrow and get up there behind a lectern in front of the cameras and get these things started. Show some spine and some resistance on the part of Democrats, and not just Democrats, but a lot of MAGA voters who are now figuring out that they were used and lied to, and their lives just might be ruined by these cuts. Since 71% of MAGA voters, MAGA supporters, Trump supporters, find his cuts to Medicaid unacceptable, and 25% of Americans are on Medicaid. So again, these are things, I don't know, we could be talking about at a daily Democratic press briefing. There you go. We love it. And we could talk about these privately hired thugs, these militias that Republicans seem to be favoring now. And they dragged a woman out of just a basic town hall with her congressman. And it was not local law enforcement. They weren't state law enforcement. It wasn't federal law enforcement. It was hired thugs, just like Trump and Elon Musk did to keep members of Congress out of federal agencies the other week. Agencies over which they have authority, oversight, and budget authority. They want to go in and see what Elon Musk is doing, since he's not confirmed anything. They don't know what he's doing. And these thugs, Blackwater thugs, Eric Prince started them. People have been talking about this for a few years, that Trump wanted his own private militia. This is what's happening. And this is something that should be talked about. We should be talking about how Trump's own former national security advisor, John Bolton, who says it's a huge embarrassment that Trump has effectively switched sides in the Russia-Ukraine war, joining Russia. The U.S. has aligned itself not with our allies in NATO, but with the long-standing principal threat to NATO, Moscow. And it's unthinkable that an American president would do this. This is John Bolton, who's not exactly the greatest guy in the world. So if this is too much for him, then you know that we have a problem. So yeah, these would just be some of the things that I might be bringing up, or urging Pete Buttigieg or somebody else who'd be leading these Democratic daily press briefings from the Capitol. And again, it's funded. It could be funded by Democratic congressional offices, committees, leadership offices, steering committees, policy and steering committees. And the room should be a permanent room or a semi-permanent room. And until they can get one, and they are allowed to use rooms. They don't have to get a Republican majority permission to use different rooms. I mean, they are allotted a certain amount, not quite as many or as good as rooms as Republicans, but they have them. Or a senator could give up one of their hideaway rooms that some of them have in the bowels of the Capitol. But again, one place every day, pool cameras, the networks and cable nets could leave their cameras there permanently. You put in the chairs, and since the press is already there in the House and Senate press galleries, and their beat is Congress. See, that's going to repeat myself from another video that I've done before. I think this bears repeating. If you take it to the DNC, they have to walk over there. It is a hike. Those of you who are familiar with campus, as we call it. And also, it's no longer their beat. So keep it their beat. The fact that they're all being kicked out of the White House press briefings anyway means that you have a much better chance of getting the kind of coverage you want. And instead of chasing this down or having just tweets and things from senators who are doing what they can, it starts here. And, those Senate offices could play a big role in terms of feeding this information they want highlighted to this newly formed staff and leader that I'm talking about. And there would be a huge stature gap between a Pete Buttigieg and what's her name, Carolyn Leavitt at the White House. The instant is behind that lectern, that job becomes huge, huge, with a tremendous amount of gravitas. It's not a mere press secretary job. He'd be special advisor, and he would be advising. He would be leading. He wouldn't just be a mouthpiece. This is what we need. So again, I've just named a few things just because I've done this for decades. If I were on that staff, if I were leading the staff as a deputy, or just one of the people that weighed in on a regular basis with things like, "Hey, I think if this makes the cut, you don't want them to be deluged, but if you can source it and give it to them in a framework that they can use, they'd have so many resources for this." And some of it is just looking at what Trump was putting on Truth Social and looking at the White House press briefings. So I've just given you a rundown of just a few items that I would cover. And clearly there would be more. But I'll tell you who would also benefit. Regular people on Facebook who have people they know, and they're reluctant to hit too hard them because they might see them at the grocery store or at church this weekend or at the country club. But these MAGA asshats jumping on other people's Facebook pages and just spewing lies and propaganda. And then first of all, and by the way, they're in a cult, so they're doing this as a tactic. People on our side are afraid to fight back. They still want to be polite. I say get over that. These people are not your friends. Some of them don't know that they're getting it wrong because all they get is their Fox News propaganda or other people on Facebook. If there was you could be quoting the daily press briefing, the daily Democratic press briefing that is sourced. So regular Americans would have the resources at their fingertips, and they would watch. They'd have the resources at their fingertips to do their part in their own lives. And then let these MAGA idiots, these cultists, because right now they're calling regular people, they're saying you're wrong, you're misinformed, or you're lying, or you need real news. Well, it's a little bit harder to say that to a little bit more of a formal fact check situation. So it's not just activists and people, other members of Congress and media who would benefit from these daily press briefings with information, with fact checking. Real-time fact checking, not something you find out 3 days later because you happen to come across a social media post. But we'd all be on the same page. We'd all be on the same page. But I think the fact that the Secretary of Defense is getting away with claiming that he can't really say if Russia invaded and attacked Ukraine. And thank goodness somebody in Senator Tammy Duckworth's office or a committee found that clip of him when he was a Fox News talking bubblehead reporting. And the Chiron even said Russia invades Ukraine, and there he is with his stick. He's pointing at the map behind him. Yeah. So this is happening, kind of hodgepodge here and there, willy-nilly. Think how strong we would be if we had a unified one person on camera every day, and then they bring in other people, of course. The resources are there. There are some of us that know, a whole lot of us actually, who know how to get this done like that. And it's not getting done. It's not getting done. So I think you should feel perfectly comfortable calling the leadership offices, even if they aren't your representatives, they are leadership, calling the DNC, but also call your Democratic senator or congressman and ask why. Ask why we haven't done that. I wrote the piece for Dame magazine last week on this, outlining the whole thing, how it would be paid for, because I was getting a lot of questions. Well, how would this be structured? Maybe it should be a podcast. No. It has to be on par with the White House press briefing room. No reason to cut corners on this. This is actually not the time to cut corners and do something. Well, wouldn't it be just as good as we did this? No. Do it right. Do a few things really, really well. And I promise you, I've never been more confident of anything in this entire era of Trump. I promise you that the press coverage would be there. that we could all be speaking with one voice and we'd start seeing real movement as resistors. So that's my TED Talk.